between us. I have a little bit of a hard time sometimes disconnecting from the world, even in a place like this. I say I come out here to think, but I wonder sometimes if instead I come out here simply to perform. But still, some thinking is clearly getting done because I'm making forward progress with my ideas. Oh, there's Siberia. There's the ruins. And if I'm making forward progress with my ideas, then something's coming of it. But is it happening here? Or is it just the effort of making the effort that's doing it? And probably something like that. Whence doth come the muse? Check out this sunset. Hopefully I won't screw the camera up. Sending the camera around. I don't know if it'll still be running when I get back. Let's do a 360 degrees. I think this video is a little you keeping me company. It's not that I'm scared. I haven't got anything to think about. It's hard when you try. Have you ever done that? Like, just send yourself out into the wild. Or someplace with a mission to think. I'm going to go to the desert, or the mountains, or the sea, or the library. Take a long drive. I'm going to think. Now, I think you can pull that off in the company of another person, because they can kind of together, you know, get the motion going. It's harder to do that alone. At least it is for me. The ideas are either there or they're not. And tonight they're not. Hey, Muse! Where are you? Hey! You over there? On the ruins? Hey, ghosts of Siberia! Are you out here? Come over here. I need some company. Hey, desert killer! No, he's too far away. Okay, so this video probably feels like a little bit like madness, but that's okay. I'm more and more becoming comfortable with just being myself on the camera. So I'm gonna do my, when all else fails, I'll revert to something that I know how to do, which is my good life meditation. So let's do it. So good life is my daily, and I seem like I always begin this eating in there in the desert. The good life is my daily effort of ambition to remind myself of my objectives and principles so that I can keep them foremost in my mind and have them to operate with. The first of these are my 6 objectives. First objective is to be always ready to die? Am I ready right now to die? No, not right now, because I haven't sent my daughter and my wife a message telling them I love them tonight. I usually do that from the desert. I send them a message, let them know I'm here, and then tell them I love them before I go to bed. As soon as I do that, I'll be ready to die. Not that I want to die. I have a lot of work to do, and not that it won't be hard. It would be hard for my wife and my daughter, but I otherwise I'm ready, because my finances are in relatively good shape. They could be better. My relationships are in fine shape. There's no unsaid words, unsaid words, unhugged hugs, unmade efforts towards reconciliation and, settlement between my family and I. I think that's the case, to the best of my ability. And my art is fine. The book's done, like I like to say. I could check out at a moment's notice. I may not have much else to say in life besides going alone. I hope so, but I may not. And if that's the case, that's okay. I would like to refine that one section, the Path of Wildness. I feel it's too cryptic and too touchy-feely, artsy-fartsy. I feel like I can get the Path of Wildness out, the good life, that's what I mean, not the Path of Wildness, the good life out well in these videos. I can say it, but I haven't been able to write it down as well as I like. So I'm working on the new book, but it's okay if I don't finish it. Okay. And so that's three. My affairs, my relationships, and my art. And I think they're all in good shape. Number 2 is the cultivation of good. No, is that right? No. Sorry, I've already had. I'm drinking a beer. I brought a beer with me tonight, maybe 2, and so I'm a little unstable in my mind. So that may explain the yelling at the muses a moment ago. So first is to be always ready to die. 2 is to good and effective use of time, to not waste the time of my life, but to make good use of it. There was ever so little, and now ever so little left. Like I like to say, there's no time for reruns. Unless you just enjoy that. So I want to make good use of the time, in the moments I have before I go. Coming out here and doing this is a good use of time. Sometimes I don't even realize it. Sometimes I come out here and I have a night like this where, Muse, come to me! And she doesn't come, and then later I find out she was whispering in my ear all along. That's happened several times. Maybe tonight. 3, the development and maintenance of good and sound life principles, to do the hard work of creating a life with a sound ethical foundation. That's exactly what I'm doing now in reciting these objectives and principles, trying to do just that. I hear a car coming on Route 66. Number 4, the cultivation of good emotional reactions. Just to react well to the circumstances of my life, especially the unexpected circumstances, especially the things that take me by surprise. Become the kind of man that doesn't fly off the handle and will die with equanimity, even in pain. Even if some of that equanimity is contrived. Yeah, even if it's contrived. We're going to hear cars. There's 2 cars going to go by. There's one coming eastbound. Let's see if you guys can see it. Turn the camera. Hopefully it won't kill it. There's one coming eastbound there. That's pointed just about at the highway. You're going to see there's a truck coming. It's going to pass your view in just a second. That's headed eastbound. The car headed westbound. Slowly headed westbound. There's the eastbound truck, and here comes the westbound car. Hopefully you guys saw that. if the camera's still running. It is. I don't feel like I could center that better. That's not bad, like that. Is that, am I still in the frame? I think so. Okay, I think that's better. Let's go with that. So, get a little closer. So, that was the, oh, I love the way you can see the Siberia ruins right there. Wow, right there. So the cultivation of good emotional reactions. Number 5 is the performance of good actions. Hey, just doing good things. Why not? It's the simplest and most satisfying of little pleasures. 6. Recognition of true limits and true opportunity. You know, I only got a few years, maybe a decade or two if I'm lucky. It's a very real limit. And I have a real opportunity in coming to a place like this and just turning the camera on despite the fact I feel like I've got nothing to say. That's an opportunity I can let pass. So what? I'll make this video. I'll do a little bit of editing I need to do and then I'll upload it. Maybe nobody will watch it. Maybe my great-grandson or daughter will watch it. You know, 2 generations removed. And maybe having a little message from great-grandpa will mean something to them. Or maybe it'll mean something to you. Maybe this is the video that you need to see to say, hey, maybe I can go to that place that kind of scares me. Or maybe it's not even that extreme. Maybe I can do that thing I'm kind of scared of. Cultivate a friendship with someone that I might be anxious about. Study something that I'm curious about but don't think I have the aptitude for. Maybe plan a trip or maybe a new life someplace that seems otherwise impossible. Look at Kurt. He's out there in the desert. He went out there looking for something. He didn't find it. Where's that damn muse? He did it anyway. He's getting a good time out of it. He's enjoying his beer, eating his food. Ooh, look at that. What's that? That's a train. That's a car coming. Another car. 2. I don't get all this traffic on Route 66. It's because the they're doing some work on the gas pipeline. Tell you what, though. Tell you what. God, I sound like a drunk. Is that another car? Is that's the train? That's the train. That's me getting in front of it. This sounds like old guy talk. Tell you what. Okay, but it's earnest. Tell you what. You won't get this chance again, whatever that thing is you want to do. It ain't coming back. And even if it does come back, it ain't the same thing that it is now. What is that? Freaking goosebumps. I'll tell you about it in a second. There goes the train. We're going to be totally dark here in just a minute. While we were just sitting there listening to the train approach, I don't know if you guys could hear it. There was 2 of these Whoop, 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 right behind me. Now, I'm 100% sure that that was some sound from the railroad, from the engine. But in 1.5 beers in, 1.25 beers in, my mind went elsewhere. Because it's kind of fun. And it's still going there, but literally the skin crawled on my back, on my neck, looking behind me. So I had to exercise one of my principles, which is good emotional reaction. Sure, I said, what the hell? I think I even cursed. I did that mostly for the camera. No, there's nothing out here. No, there's nothing out here that I really need to be afraid of. Just men that might come here. Maybe the men who leave the graffiti from time to time. Maybe in that car right there. Maybe the threat that's coming is approaching right now. Let's follow it. Let's see, is it slowing down? Is it going to slow down? Is it going to come up the road? Is it bad guys? No, they're just going past. They never even know I'm here. So whatever that whoop whoop was, it was nothing. So maybe you needed to see that. But who am I to tell you what you need to see? But maybe that's the thing. Heaven knows I've had lots of email from people who tell me that kind of stuff. Let's get on with it. Those are my 6 objectives. I have 20 principles. First is the principle of war. To go to war with what I hold is true and important. Hear that high-pitched whistle? Namely, the things that I believe. I want to war against them. I want to know if they really are true. And if not, then find them out and toss them in the rubbish bin. I also want to know if the things you tell me you think are true. And I'm going to do that by applying my mind to take you seriously. And if I find out that I don't think you're true, I'll be nice. But I'll just disregard what you say and move on. I'll say, I'm sorry, I don't believe you. Number 2, the principle of reason. If war is my object, reason is the instrument by which I achieve that end. And the sub-principles are honesty and objectivity. By honestly examining my world and being objective in my assessment, I can then use reason to flesh out fear and fantasy from fact and know more about what is really true. 3, the homunculus. A little man who lives in my head. Go some cars. And who will die with me when I die. The little mortal who lives in my head. Don't think there's anything after this life. So I use homunculus in place of the concept of the soul. Guess what? The homunculus is the one that's in charge of good and evil. Because good and evil are subjective to the extent that they're subject to opinion and perspective, but objective to the extent that you and I can come to some agreement about what they are, and then it becomes something that is true between the two of us. Objective between the two of us. Wow, I'm really losing the light. Here comes one more car. All this civilization. 5, purpose. Like I said before. That's a motorcycle, I think. There are 2. Maybe that's a car. There are 2 purposes in my life. To reproduce and to stay alive. Beyond that, it's up to me. 2 objective purposes. Objective insofar as the universe seems to have instilled that as a mandate within me and you. To stay alive as long as you can, and to make more copies of yourself before you go. So beyond that, I've decided my own purpose. purpose. 5 is, 6 is, 7 is, 8 is, 9 is, 10 is, 11 is, 12 is, 13 is, 14 is, 15 is, 16 is, 17 is, 18 is, 19 is, 20 is, 21 is, 22 is, 23 is, 24 is, 25 is, 26 is, 27 is, 28 is, 29 is, 30 is, 31 is, 32 is, 33 is, 34 is, 35 is, 36 is, 37 is, 38 is, 39 is, 40 is, 41 is, 42 is, 43 is, 44 is, 45 is, 46 is, 47 is, 48 is, 49 is, 50 is, 51 is, 52 is, 53 is, 54 is, 55 is, 56 is, 57 is, 58 is, 59 is, 60 is, 61 is, 62 is, 63 is, 64 is, 65 is, 66 is, 67 is, 68 is, 69 is, 70 is, 71 is, 72 is, 73 is, 74 is, 75 is, 76 is, 77 is, 78 is, 79 is improvement of the well-being of things that are alive. It's real simple. Not quite happiness, but you can kind of wrap it up in a way as happiness in a way. That would be the object of perfect virtue, is reasonable happiness for as many as possible. The smile of a puppy dog, if you'll forgive my simplicity. The smile of a neglected and forgotten puppy dog that nobody wanted, that wound up in a shelter, that someone selected and brought home, and gave a home and love and a life. That very thing, if we can do that in mass, across the board, then we've got something virtuous. Then we've got something good. Six, the atomic principle. You can't see my hands, but I'm lifting some sand. Maybe you can hear it. I'm dropping it. I always do that with sand because I want to illustrate the fact that everything is made of bits and pieces, atoms, of course, and molecules, including you and I. And soon we're going to die and fall back to those constituent parts, be nothing more than atoms and molecules again. And whatever it is, this thing that we are now will be no more. We'll be wiped out. I don't know any good reason to think otherwise, although lots of people will tell you otherwise. They have all their work ahead of them. At least if they want to convince me. Ashes to ashes and dust to dust. I think that was something true. Number 7, the principle of nature. Everything in the universe has some particular nature. And it's good to recognize what that nature is and abide it, or at least understand it, as best we can. For example, it's the nature of the sun to go down as it is and become a blurry sunset there with that vague bit of Siberian ruins. Look how it's just barely flickering on. At least my little monitor is. Maybe it's coming through better for you guys. It's the nature of sundown in the desert. It's a new moon night. There will be no moon tonight. It is going to be dark. Forgive me, you're going to need to tolerate some darkness now, with maybe the periodic passage of a car or train. But I think I'm going to finish this video fast, so maybe soon it'll be that darker dark. I certainly will have to tolerate a very dark night tonight. That is the nature of the desert on a new moon night. It's the nature of me as a mortal, as a mammal, as a primate, as a surviving animal, to be a little afraid of this kind of stuff. One of the reasons I'm enjoying this beer. My friend Friendly Frank, the comic, likes to call it liquid comedy. I think it's liquid courage a little bit. Don't like to drink very much, but sometimes it brings on the muse. Hey, Muse, did you show up? Is that you talking right now? Zip up my tent here. This light of the monitor may draw in some bugs, and I don't like the bugs to get stuck in the tent, because then in the morning when I zip up the tent, I can't get them out, and then they get stuck and they don't die. They die. The nature, principle of nature, the nature of things, including you and I. Next is the principle of maturity. Maturity is that state of being familiar with past experience, cognizant of things that have happened in the past, particularly the mistakes as well as the successes, and willing to make good decisions about future opportunities based on what we know from our past or what others have taught us. And the second part of that is fortitude, is a willingness to follow through on our better decisions. Maturity then is wisdom and fortitude. Wisdom is hard won. You only acquire that through hard effort through the course of our lives. Fortitude can be trained at an early age. The military does that. They train their soldiers to be
disciplined and to follow orders. And the idea is that the wisdom of the generals can be passed along through the orders and then carried out by the soldiers, who are basically becoming instruments of the wisdom of the generals. It's an interesting idea. Yeah, I'm sure each of you is thinking now about, wisdom of the generals. But there's something to that, right? The generals in their training and their education, they have some institutional knowledge about how to conduct warfare that the young grunts in the field don't necessarily have. But they can be aided by that wisdom through the chain of command and the discipline of following orders. So wisdom and fortitude. Guess what? You can execute that in your own life as well. You can cultivate that. It takes practice. And it takes time to cultivate the wisdom. Now, excuse me, I have to sniffle just a little bit. This is very gross. Sorry. A little bit of allergies out here. Okay, next one, after wisdom and fortitude, is the social principle. Despite the fact that I'm in the middle of nowhere, I am a social animal, and I do like my fellows, and I make a strong effort when I'm at work and home and elsewhere to be a social man, even though I kind of rather prefer this. I know that, though, that if I came here and spent all my time doing this, that my life wouldn't be... here's the first bug. There's like a moth flying in my face. My life would be far less... I want to say rich, but it sounds like I'm bragging. But it does feel rich. It does feel... I do feel blessed, even though I'm not blessed necessarily with material wealth. I'm blessed with the good... how do you say it? The intangible goodness of a well-lived life. And again, I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm bragging. I guess I am a little bit. But I have made a conscious effort through the course of my life to seek after what I call the deeper risks of life, which is recognizing what I think would make my life a more satisfying life, and take the chances and make the risks and the sacrifice that would yield that. Thus witness my becoming the caretaker of Moonstone Beach. Thus witness my adventures of hitchhiking and living in Japan and becoming Softy Papa and the band in Japan and coming back here and now in the desert and choosing a woman that would abide that also. It's been a very fruitful thing. Very, very rich in many ways. So much so that to the point that I'm being sated. If I don't make it through the night tonight, that's just fine, although I feel for my wife and daughter. Here comes a train. That said, we are social animals and we need one another. So even if you choose this life, don't forget the others. You need them. There's something really scary that you can become if you don't do that, if you don't make that effort. It's scarier than the other thing. You know what that other thing is. Number 10, the Feast of Offal. Offal is the waste and byproduct of the butcher's art. As they chop up their butchery and they come up with all the gross things, the toenails, the hair, the snouts, the butts, the whatever the heck, the pig's feet. They toss it away. It's the stuff that's discarded, or they grind it up and make it into sausages, find some other use for it. The term for that is offal. Excuse me, I got a sniff again. The Feast of Offal is this image that I want to put in my mind of how we human beings in the course of our life, when we're upset or frustrated or angry, we tend to spew out these things upon the world, even in front of others. It's like, something doesn't quite happen. Maybe work's not a good example, although it can happen there too. Usually it's more of an interpersonal thing with the family. Maybe something happens and, the car gets a flat tire and you're like, gosh dang, why is that going on? Or where's my goddamn muse? Why I came out here all the way to the desert and the goddamn... And see that damn horn is blowing just when I'm trying to talk and make a point. Shut up! One more.
Thank you, train, for helping me make a point. Let's watch it go past again. You see this up? Get the point? That's what I was trying. Actually, that helped me make a point. So the idea is that things happen and we tend to blow off the handle and fly off the handle and let go with the emotions, right? You know what's funny? Others around us tend to eat that shit up. Excuse my language. It is shit. And I don't know if it's for want of feeling better about themselves or ourselves, because if we watch the suffering of others and indulge in it, we kind of maybe feel a little better about our own inadequacies and sufferings. Whatever the reason, we tend to do it. So I blow up, everyone around me kind of pays attention to it and they suck it in a little bit, and it kind of, maybe it feels good in a way, but it's kind of a nasty kind of goodness, nasty good feeling, and they feel good about it, and then they've swallowed up my offal, my waste. You know, I spew out all my waste and they gobble it up. Guess what? Then they spew out some of their own waste later and somebody else gobbles that up. And on it goes, and we just keep passing it back and forth. And I'll try to put a stop to that by two fronts. One, by trying to control my own distribution and release of this offal, and by not consuming the offal of others when they give it out. I like that sound. Well, that's the Feast of Offal. Number 11. We're halfway there through the principles. I don't think I've missed any yet. Agency. No. You almost missed one. Temperance. Temperance. And there are three sub-principles: suffering, simplicity, and apathy. Temperance is our ability to control our consumption of all things: food, drink, work, play, sex, whatever indulgence we might want to perform, including, wow, that desert quiet showing up, including the consumption of emotions. Again, back to the Feast of Offal. When that emotion rises up, I knocked my plate over. That emotion rises up through my, my gut. It's like, ah! Instead of consuming it, I can instead choose to simply, hold on. I can choose to simply moderate that, not gobble it up, but instead just have a little sample of it and ask myself, whence does this emotion come? Where is this thing rising from? This anger or frustration? And then when I can figure it out and say, oh, this is because, you didn't expect that train to arrive and interrupt your soliloquy, Kurt. And now you're all upset because that happened, and the frustration that arises. Okay, here we go. What's that? Is my oh, there we go, okay. That's what it is. Here we go, I got my little flashlight here. That's spooky. Wow! Wow! Okay, I'll just go with that a little bit. Maybe it's better in the dark, I don't know. So that's the, feels like I'm doing that campfire thing. That's the Feast of Offal. No, the Temperance. So when the emotion rises, instead of flying off the handle, I simply ask myself where it comes from, sample it a little bit, and then make a decision about how I'm going to react. Usually it involves a bit of restraint to stop myself from getting too upset, and then speaking or acting or behaving in such a way as to be a mature response. Or simply pulling myself away from the situation altogether until I calm down. Whoop, I'm drawing in the bugs now. Next is the best seat in the house. To not want to be anyone else, be anywhere else,
be anywhere else or be doing anything else, but to be okay with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing, whatever that may be, even if I'm about to die. It's not necessarily resigning myself to my current circumstance, but accepting that circumstance, all the while attempting to improve it. It's a bit of a balancing act. It's a tricky thing to do. I'm not very good at it, but it's a principle I strive for. The next is the path of wildness. This is the oldest of all of these. I came up with this in Japan when young people would write to me asking about how they could have a life of adventure, live the life that they wanted to live, and I would suggest to them, picking out the course, deciding what course they were considering, then weigh the pros and the cons, get as many facts as they can, give themselves a reasonable amount of time to think about it, and then make a decision. And that if they couldn't quite, and if they can't, when that time came to make the decision, if they didn't have enough information, then give themselves a little more time to collect some more facts. But eventually, there comes a time where you either make a decision or you decide not to do it at all, or you just move on. And that's the path of wildness. When you step upon the direction of your first inclination, letting a little bit of instinct help to guide you, that's the path of wildness. Here comes the car. The truck. Let me turn this light off. I don't want them to see me. I don't think they could, though. Next is the risk of avoiding risk. Risk of avoiding risk is, there's two levels of risk in life. One is the surface level risk that we're all familiar with. When we're young, our parents tell us, go to school, find a mate, get a job, start a family, and start saving some money for your retirement. All good stuff. But I want to suggest that there are deeper risks that we are in danger of not addressing because we don't typically talk about them very much. And that's the risk of not living the more fulfilling life that you want. Call that your art, perhaps, or whatever the case may be. It's important to give yourself some of that. We live long enough to do that. Maybe when we only lived to be 35 or 40 years old, it was important to follow the that course of your parents. But we live to be in our 80s now on average. You got lots of decades after your kids are grown. Why not mix it up a little bit? I suggest give yourself the decade of the whole 20s, the whole decade. Go to school as far as you can, and then after that, if you've got some dream, then go realize that dream, whether it be travel or language or more education or whatever the case may be. And then when you get to your 30s, then you can find someone to share your life with, settle down into a career, and you got lots of time to start a family and go on from there. Of course, it may not all work out perfect. You may not find somebody. It may be too late to have kids. Maybe it's too late to get started a career, but I never said it was without risk. It is a risk, but I think it's a good risk to attempt to mitigate through the aforementioned action. Next one is sin and damnation. There are 5 sins in my worldview, and really they're all the same thing. These are falsity, credulity, faith, superstition, and dogma. And they're all basically the sin of believing things without good reason. The consequence of that is damnation, because you live a damned life. You live a damned life believing things that aren't true. And who wants to do that? So exercise a little reason. Exercise a little war. Find out what really is true, whatever the cost. Next is complete oblivion. If the homunculus is true and there is no soul, then the homunculus dies with us. It doesn't carry on. That means that after we're gone, there appears to be no life after that. That means there's no final reunion with the ones we left behind or who we leave behind, or who have left us behind before us, no reunion with our parents or grandparents or anything like that. No final reconciliation with anybody we left life on sour terms with, and no final justice for those after death is done, because there appears to be no lawgiver, no justice giver. We need to seek after all 3 of those things now, while we're alive. So reach out to those that we've lost connection with. Reconcile as best you can with those that we've had a falling out with. and pursue and seek after justice in, in whatever legal manner we can during the course of our lives. The next one is, we're almost done. That was Complete Oblivion. The next is The Great Life Adventure. Like I said before, the whole decade of your 20s. Give it to yourself. People are going to freak out. Your parents are going to go nuts. What could it possibly do? I think you'll be glad you did. I like to say that I think that you'll find that you might wind up midlife and indeed fulfilling the ambition, the objective of being always ready to die because of the decisions you made and the opportunities you gave yourself at an early stage. 2 more. The Season of Philosophy. What does that sound? Must be a train. That's a deep booming in the desert. I'm sure it's a train coming. Season of Philosophy. A time to share whatever you learned along the way. My recommendation is simply do it when it comes, in whatever form it comes, be it writing or video or art, poetry, whatever it is. Get it out when it comes, because it won't come back. And if it does come back, it has something different to say. And it doesn't always come at an old age. And what a terrible thing it would be to find yourself an old man or a woman, or maybe even not that old, and find yourself decrepit and crippled in some way, maybe sitting in a chair, unable to muster the energies or the will or the mental faculties to say the things that you wanted to say, and you never did say, even though that muse still speaks in your head. And then to die having never got it out. I think a lot of us leave life that way. So say it now. And if you can, say it publicly. So that is a whole other level of courage. Lastly, arena and utility. This life is an arena for the execution of our principles in the pursuit of our objectives. I've given you my 20 and 6. What are yours? And further, are they yours? Or are they somebody else's? That's okay if they're somebody else's. But are they sound? Are they valid? Heck, I'll even give you mine if you want them. You're welcome to them. But see if you can defend them to yourself and to others. Don't hold on to them if you can't. And with that, I'll say goodnight. Thank you for joining me. We're from Siberia Ghost Town, where the ghosts are not stirring because they never were. And the muse isn't here either. But I do hear a thumping in the night. I do hear some low rumble. But probably, almost certainly, it's nothing to be afraid of. Make it a good life.